Elsewhere, the Taliban claims it's taken over a strategic town in Afghanistan in the country's largest province, Helmand. If confirmed, the loss of Sangin would be a major setback for the Afghan army. Local authorities, though, are denying the Taliban's claim. We spoke with a reporter on the ground about the latest situation there.
Intense fighting is going on in volatile Sangin district of southern Helmand province, one of the strongholds of Taliban militants in Afghanistan. Most of the areas of Sangin district is now under the Taliban control. We could say 90% of this Sangin district is under the Taliban control after they fought for 5 days with the government forces and with the advisors of NATO, the British advisors of NATO, who were dispatched in Helmand province to advise Afghan forces to fight the Taliban.
The majority of foreign troops pulled out of the country at the end of last year, though some coalition forces did remain. As we just heard from the local journalist, British troops have been deployed in Helmand province now. The UK's Defence Ministry stresses they won't take part in combat operations, though. RT's Polly Boyker's got more from London.
Well, this situation has left the province of Helmand perilously close to Taliban control. And the problem seems to be that Afghan forces aren't able to stave off this Taliban insurgency on their own. The Afghan military is beset by a number of problems, endemic corruption. Technically, they're lacking in air power, which is why Afghanistan's defense minister has called for international support and air cover. Now, the reason why all this is such a worrying development is perhaps because in the West there had been some wishful thinking that when coalition forces withdrew the bulk of their troops from the region, that perhaps the Taliban would launch fewer attacks. A Pentagon report released earlier this month admitted that the Taliban has likely been emboldened by the situation and by the coalition's transition from its combat role to this train, advise and assist role. And it predicted that the Taliban will continue to launch attacks going into next year, and that insurgents will be focusing on these very strategically important areas of Helmand and Kandahar province. Now, the reason Helmand province is so important and what's taking place there now is so significant is because of the poppy growing trade there. The fact that anybody who controls that area has access to the opium trade. Now, the British military has sent its advisors into the region, and of course that is traditionally, Helmand is traditionally Britain's turf. It's where the majority of Britain's operations were based throughout the course of the Afghan war, and consequently it's where Britain lost over 100 lives of its soldiers there in Helmand. So the loss of Sangin, a town that's very important strategically within this province, would be significant, not just because it provides such an important base for the Taliban in that region, but also psychologically what a blow it would be. And it would, I think, leave a lot of people wondering what it was that coalition forces achieved in Afghanistan over the course of that 10-year war.
Over in Iraq, government forces are apparently having more success fighting terrorists. Soldiers there have killed dozens of Islamic State militants in the city of Ramadi, with an offensive in Anbar province now into its third day. These are the latest pictures from the ground. It's a mess. You can see the areas that were liberated from ISIL have been basically completely destroyed. No houses escaped damage, very few anyway, after months under the terrorist control. Iraqi security forces have reportedly made progress in recapturing several parts of western Ramadi, and now they say they're pushing towards the city centre.
I think the attack on Ramadi was in the planning already for the last few months, and last May when it was captured by ISIS, it was a big embarrassment and a shock to the US also, that given that Ramadi is only 110 or so kilometers away from Baghdad, so this is right in the footsteps of Baghdad, and there was a serious threat that this may spread further to the east towards the capital. And also we need to remember that the second biggest city in Iraq, Mosul, is still under ISIL control. and probably securing the environment and surrounding territory around Baghdad was the primary target for now, before moving into other targets further to the north that ISIS still controls.
Thousands of civilians still live in that city. Islamic State fighters are reportedly holding several families hostage in the hospital in the centre of Ramadi. The anti-ISIL operations also being hampered by the fact that so much of that city has been booby-trapped too. Former Pentagon official Michael Malouf told us that the situation's complicated at an international level as well.
I think there's a lot of elements involved here, not the least of which is that the United States is feeling left out of trying to maintain influence in that region. Competition with Russia is very much up there in terms of motivation on the part of the United States. I think it'd be better if the United States worked with Russia to try to curb a common enemy here and do more coordination, including with Iran. There's no rhyme or reason why we're not working with Iran and Russia to deal with this common enemy, and it has shown itself to be really very threatening, not only in Iraq and Syria, but now into the Caucasus, Central Asia,